still a possibility.
Right,
Okay.
there was some talk of that, right?
Exactly.
Okay, we'll call the finance meeting to order. We'll start, I need a motion to accept the November 10th minutes. Moved by Dave O'Brien, second by James Griffin. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, department request, treasurer report. Go ahead, treasurer.
Hold tight.
I was not in either. Oh, that's something I had to call you, got it in my.
Wait, but I'm not sitting next to.
Why? I have all the natural stuff now.
This typhoid berry here for great sake.
There's the treasurer. Good morning, Al.
Morning, everyone. Happy news, I'll be very brief this morning. You received my packet, I apologize for the delay. I'm still trying to get used to this whole 24-hour notice stuff, so I do apologize for coming out this morning. The biggest thing that I have for you this morning, of course, is the sales tax deposit from 2 days ago was another $389,000 over the same deposit last year, putting us $3.8 million over, year-to-date over last year. If we stay flat the rest of the year, we'll be at $26,127,000 and change. That's if we stay flat with no more growth. Our actual growth percentage over last year is at 19.83. That's pretty significant. Whether that's sustainable is yet to be determined, and will be the subject of many future conversations, I believe. But I'm happy to see the number, and I think that because of the lag, we're going to see this continue at least into the first quarter of next year, no matter what. Because remember that the deposit we got is actually from a November time period. So December Christmas shopping and stuff, we won't see the fruits of that until January, early February.
So our January 13th, reconciliation is probably through to what, the 1st of December?
I'd have to check the dates, Chairman.
Yeah, I
do have a schedule back in my office.
Somewhere close to that. It's
Yeah.
either the end of November or mid-November.
It's got some December dates in there, is my memory, but I'd hate to be specific without having it in front of me.
Okay.
And then the cash balances are there for you. And the budget variance report, I didn't see anything still that gives me any great cause for concern. General fund right now is showing a surplus of $5.7 million. And, so, I mean, you can't really, feel too bad about that. Even our carpool and road machinery funds seem to be holding their own this year. So I'm happy to see that as well. And even the workers' comp fund looks like it might be adding back right around the same amount that you appropriated for next year. So we may end up having no impact on the fund balance, even with a little bit you had to tap for next year. So all in all, I feel pretty good. The only one that seemed to have a little bit of a dip was the sewer district, but, he had some stuff he had to do, and, you can't ignore it. So, I mean, it is what it is with the sewer district. And that's, those district ratepayers unfortunately will bear that burden, but that's the only fund that seemed to have any kind of significant, downturn at all.
Thank you, sir.
And I have an agenda item that I can either do later, I can do while you have my attention.
Do it right now.
Okay. I have been working as diligently as I can to keep we have a machine that folds and stuffs all the paychecks and audit checks, and we even do all the tax bills and stuff like that through it. And we've had the maintenance man here quite a few times this year. It's all under contract, but we've had to have them significantly more during last year and this year, so the machine has basically come to the end of its life, and, it's the recommendation to have that machine replaced. I went through my budget, and we've been able to, keep the bankruptcy fees down. And interestingly enough, our treasurer's fees for like tax searches and stuff are actually up. So if the committee was willing to, I need, but I don't have the number right in front of me, it's, $11,636.
Yeah, it's resolution K in our packet.
Okay. So that's, but I have the money in my budget, if we do it this year, to not impact next year's budget at all, to replace it. So between the additional treasurer's fees and the savings of the bankruptcy council, I can actually fund the machine out of this year's budget if the committee so desires.
Okay, very good. So we'll do that when we go through the resolution, so we know.
That would be fine with me, I just wanted to kind of get that out there.
No, that was great for everybody to hear it, since it didn't come through committee, it's here.
Thanks, Sharon.
Very good. Okay, so the first thing up is the historian. So this must be Resolution A that we're starting with. Is that right? So Resolution A is to authorize acceptance of the grant of Sandy Hill Foundation, and the grant is $51,823. Was there a motion? Accept that grant. Cassie Fedler, second. Dana Hogan, Sue Clary. Any discussion?
I just wanted to inform the committee, we actually have the money in hand already on this, just to check in rather quickly.
Money's everywhere. Okay, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, next is the sewer district, so this is Resolution B, it's for small tools. Need a motion to move those. Moved by Dave O'Brien, second by Jay Skelly, Cassie Fedler, Dana Hogan. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? You have a question?
Have it from the
Oh, okay, carried. C, oh, it's at the bottom of my page. So C is another one for office furniture and sewer districts. I need a motion for that. Moved by Sue Clary, second by Cassie Fedler, Jay Skelly. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. Next, we're at public health. This is Resolution D, the preparedness grant. Need a motion to accept that money. Moved by Cassie Fedler, second by Sue Clary. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution E, also for the vaccine response fund, also in public health. I need a motion to move that. So moved. Moved by Dave O'Brien, second, Cassie Fedler and Sue Clary. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. Now we're at mental health. This is Resolution F. It's for 100% state aid. It's increasing the appropriation by $20,660. I need a motion for that. Moved by Sue Clary, second by Dave O'Brien, Cassie Fedler. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, Resolution G is from IT to buy Caseload Explorer. I believe this is appropriation. Next, 10,000. So motion to move this one forward. Moved by Cassie Fedler, second. Sue Clary. Any discussion? Henke?
$10,000 to buy it, what's the annual upkeep on it?
It's an additional $10,000.
Okay. Going forward, what's the annual upkeep on it?
I don't have that in front of me, but there is a number, I know.
Is it a large number or a small
I think
number?
so.
It's large.
Larger than 10,000?
Well, to me, that's large.
Pretty large.
I thought it was less, but I
Okay.
can't confirm.
Okay, well, we'll do it for
Yeah.
the board meeting, okay.
And I think we were the last one in the state to be on this, so we're lucky we got it at under 100,000, to be honest, so.
Well, it was free.
But it was free originally.
Yep.
Okay.
So everything we put into it is a loss.
Yeah. That's what happens when you don't, you either take the hit or you take the kick. Wow. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. H is TSS. This is, iPads. So motion to move that money. Moved by Dave O'Brien, second by Kathy Fedler, Sue Clary. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carries. Okay. Resolution I is to amend the title by grade schedule, add training specialist part-time at grade 19. This is with the foster care unit. Do I have a motion? Moved by Kathy Fedler, second by Sue Clary. Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution J, create the title of Deputy Director of the Washington County Sewer District. Do I have a motion to move this forward? Moved by Dave O'Brien, seconded by Jay Skilly. Kathy Fedler, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Oh, I got Dana half. Go ahead, Dana.
I'm not opposed. I had a question.
Yeah.
Now, would he only be paid for the sewer district, or could he also be paid that rate through code enforcement? If he were to inspect septic tanks and leach fields?
And that would have to be separate.
But he would have the same payroll system, right? He'd be in the same payroll.
Yeah, but it'd probably be a different rate, wouldn't it be, from?
Different title and grade, wouldn't it?
Yeah, different title and grade totally, I would think.
And different funding streams, if you can't do work outside the district,
Right.
you'd be paid by the district, so you'd have to have a separate funding stream.
But he would still have the ceiling of 35,000, right?
As far as, well, there is no actual ceiling, it's over 35, they start to then take it away from your pension, so you can make $1 million a year if you want, it's just, if they draw your pension down until they get to zero, so.
Well, there's a ceiling of us paying 35.
Right. Well, it would still be us, even if you
Yeah.
split the time between code enforcement and the sewer district, it would just have to be a different, probably it's different job duties, so you probably have to create another title, but you definitely have to have a different funding stream. Because the sewer district employees, I mean, we're always talking about this, they are paid for out of sewer district funds, but that's because they only work for people that are in the district. So if they're doing out-of-district work, or for folks that aren't out-of-district users, like in Hartford, I don't think you have any out-of-district users in Hartford, then, you would have to be paid separately, you couldn't be paid from sewer district funds to do that kind of work.
And I think he'd have to work under the coverage of the code enforcement department head too, right?
Well, I guess that would be depending on where you put that other title.
That's what I mean, he'd have to be under some money at that point.
Right.
Don't know what?
I think if, to be clean, we would contract with him. I don't think that we would do that as an employee. We would contract for that service, I believe, and that would be a lot cleaner.
That would be clear.
But the funding stream wouldn't come out of sewer district.
It would not, and that's
Right.
the main reason for not doing it. You know, I would actually let them, contract as a vendor to do those services.
You know, I know
Keep that completely clean.
I know it's Christmas when anything in septic and sewer is cleaner. That's pretty good, I like that.
What's your day job?
Correct, Dan.
But Al, we charge back all the time, one department to another for funding streams, but I mean, maybe he is not even interested, so it might be a moot point.
And
Thank you.
we did pass that, right? All in favor, say aye.
Yes,
Okay, so we're past. Okay, so K is, this is the folder sealer that the treasurer was looking for, that everyone just heard that discussion on. So is there a motion to move that? Moved by Kathy, second by Sue Clary. Any discussion on that? Seconded by Dana Hogan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Resolution to levy taxes for purposes of annual budget for the towns of Washington County. That's resolution L. This is the normal, we get it this time of year. So a motion to move that. Moved by Dave O'Brien. Is there a second? Kathy Fedler, Sue Clary. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Carried. In other business, IT's trying to finish up their stuff for the air, so there's a couple of things I'd like to do. They're gonna get the numbers for us, so I'd like to move a resolution to the full board to move .2, .4 to switch to figure out their account, but they're still working on the numbers, so I'm hoping they can get that to us at the end of the day and we can mail that out in the packet if we could, but it's just moving them within, .4 and .2 lines. So I'd like to move that. I don't know, can we move that without a number, knowing that the number's coming, or that's all?
I'm gonna move a budget amendment between lines in the IT department.
In the IT deparment, .2s and .4s, just to sort everything out.
With no new money, just transfer between lines.
Right. So I just wanna move that to the full board. Can we do that, or? That's, okay. Moved by Dave, second.
We're gonna get it tomorrow so that we have it for the.
That's what I'm hoping, is that they have it by the end of the day today, but
We're working with Terry.
they're working on it right now. They just need a couple things from, I think they said, public defender and sheriff, what they needed to get substantiate that. And then there was, forgot the contract tracer one.
Yeah.
Better do that one first.
Gotta vote on the IT one?
Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, resolution M. Thank you for reminding me, Melissa. The contact tracers, this came up, as far as them getting paid and being trained, and this is what we came up with. Has everyone had a chance to read it and understand it, or Melissa, would you like to address what it does, or?
I can. Public Health has hired contact tracers recently, that they had to hire quite quickly, to cover some of the workload, that is affiliated with COVID and contact tracer duties. The employees that they have hired recently, there's a group of them that they required complete the training prior to being put onto the payroll. So we would like to be able to compensate these people for taking that training at the direction of Public Health. So this resolution M, reflects the $125 that we would like to have paid through audit, to pay those that are directed to take the contact tracer required course prior to being hired by the county and put onto the payroll.
Well, it's only to those people that actually get hired in the end.
Yeah.
And it should be a one-off, I mean, it just shouldn't.
The norm is to have them do it while they're on payroll.
Right.
Just for the special circumstance to get them.
To get them going.
Running, so to speak. But unfortunately, I can't pay them before their start date, so this is a mechanism to get them compensated.
So this is a double anomaly, as Roger said.
It could be.
Well, we're hoping it is.
We're hoping it is. Okay, moved by Sue Clary. Is there a second? Kathy Fedler. Is there any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, the other thing in IT, I talked to Al about this, and there won't be much money left in IT. There could be more because we have a subscription we have that we paid for in advance that goes on next year's, but
You'll hear more about that.
right, so any money that's left over, I would like to move to next year like we did last year at this time, or maybe we did it in January, but just whatever money's left in IT to their reserve account so they have it to finish projects they're already working on. Same type idea. So I'm just looking for a motion to move that. didn't come through IT because we just didn't think about it in advance. But that's where I'm at. So is there a motion to do that?
Is it encumbering any money in the 2021?
It's whatever they have left over.
In total, like .1s to .8s, or just specific lines?
I think it's in total, I think is what we moved. Because remember we took them out of the capital plan.
I think it might have been just 2s and 4s, Brian.
You think it was just 2s and 4s?
I don't think it was
Okay.
personnel.
That's what I was.
I think it was just 2s and 4s.
I just can't remember, but. So I just wanna move it so they have their money for their projects and stuff, that's all.
I think Jimmy moved it.
So move, Brian.
Move by James?
Yep.
Okay, is there a second? Cassie Fedler, is there any discussion on that? On the left?
And I want to ask the committee the same question I asked you, Brian. So last January, we did a resolution establishing the reserve and putting money in it. This year, you're going to do a resolution putting money in it. If there's an appetite, the committee could actually decide to make this an automatic thing, to start funding the IT capital reserve through any surplus monies each year. But if you want to hear about it each year, that's fine, there's no harm in that. But you can actually make this an automatic trigger that, because they used to be part of the capital plan and we had full amount, this is a way to ensure that they get some kind of funding each year. Could be 10,000, could be 0, could be 200,000. But you could actually make this resolution, a permanent, an automatic thing. If you had an appetite to do that. If you want to talk about it each year, there's no harm in that either. I just wanted to put that out there, that you have options.
Either one works for me.
I personally like doing it each year, because I don't want to set a precedent. Sure. Another department can say, hey, wait a minute, they're doing it, we're just as important. Right. We want to encumber all our money too, then fund balance goes away because it never gets completed again. So
I just wanted to present that there was an option, if you had an appetite.
you should know I want to do that, because I'm against the cascade. I like to hear everything all the time, because my memory's fucked, Sal. So you should know these things like that. I like revisiting them.
I didn't assume it would be possible.
Okay, any other discussion?
It was for me selfishly.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
I have information on Resolution G.
Okay, and resolution G.
Supervisor Henke had asked about the, maintenance costs for the Cape Road Explorer. The maintenance, wouldn't begin until 2023, and it's $17,000 a year. So that's what it's for 23 and 24.
I was nervous when you said under 10,000, I was nervous, because I actually thought it was 16.
Because that was wishful thinking.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Henke was pretty sure he knew it was a lot, so.
Well, I know it was a lot, I know that.
Yeah, but it was a case where we could have at least had it for free originally, and we didn't get there, but it makes everything happen in real time, is the idea.
It's a good thing to do.
Yes, so, not all bad. Okay, is there any other business to come before the board? Dave O'Brien.
So, I just want to give you an update on TDI, the Champlain Hunting Power Express. We're moving close to signing agreements with them. Their contract has been signed by New York State. They now go to Public Service Commission for comment period of 2 months. Supposedly, that would put them, signing the final sign-off in March to start construction. News was that when we first originally talked about this, the construction cost is $285 million. We got an updated construction cost. New updated construction cost is $413 million. County itself means going from about $765 million in the first year to $1.14 million a year. And for the entire period, means approximately $55 million over a 30-year period of time coming strictly to the county, Washington County's coffers. That's up from about $34 million. So there will be another adjustment period a week before we sign the contracts. There will be another, when construction is completed, an adjustment. It's my understanding that the adjustment will only be upwards. that since they've already signed the contract for, payments for the fixed amounts, currently it will not go down, it will go up. So any adjustments will be upward, not downward.
Any other discussion on that, Dana Haas?
Dave, but these are all estimates. What is the actual financial amounts that would come to the county and the towns? That's all based upon actual cost, correct? So these are estimates.
No. No. When we sign an agreement, we're gonna give them a fixed payment for 30 years. That will stay in place unless at the end of construction, the costs go up. Then there'll be an upward adjustment. There will not be a downward adjustment. Actual cost.
So the fixed price will be based upon, again, an estimate, but it'll be fixed, right? Because they don't know what they don't know what they're gonna spend on cost yet until the project is complete.
So, they will be locked in for, when we sign agreements, be locked in for what's in the schedules. If actual construction costs go up, there will be an adjustment. There will not be an adjustment, it goes down.
Sounds too good to be true.
We have a good lawyer.
And just to reemphasize, when Dave refers to we, it's the IDA that's doing this. The county doesn't sign anything. The county just has to be the taxing jurisdiction, so we get the pilot, just as the town is the jurisdiction, and they get a pilot, or community fund, or OSPAC, it's whatever.
So, Dana Hogan had a question, when is construction date expected to begin? Can't expect it to begin until they get the final sign off by the PSC. They've already started the engineering work up in Putnam and Dresden area. So they expect to begin construction as soon as sign off, and they forecast March, the final sign off. The distribution of pilot and CHP, community host benefit packages will be at time it goes in operation. They could predict construction will take 3 years. So you're talking basically 2025 when the first distributions will take place.
And that could be 26 also.
No, or it could be earlier. Though I doubt it, no construction tax on schedule.
Right.
You'll have a wonderful tutorial about the impact of pilots on your tax cap.
You might not have to do it right away. It's according to where the state goes too, probably. Dan Shaw, I got Kelsey.
Yes, on resolution I for the foster care, it says it's being covered by the American Recovery Fund.
Yes.
When that runs out, doesn't it, those funds, and then it'll be part of the budget, or will a portion of it be part of the budget? And what kind of an impact will that be on the budget? Normally you have a budget impact, and I know since it's being funded, there is none this year. But, I don't know, was it ever told to us what that was going to be?
I think this is the training to get them started, so hopefully the training is temporary, and then it's in-house after that is where I believe we're going.
That's the plan,
That's the plan. And then, of course, it's all funded by whatever percentage DSS is in that foster care section. So it would be, anywhere from 50 to 80%.
But that's gonna be an impact, right, on our budget in the following year?
These training people go away once they have the unit up and running. Then it would just be in-house training by people that are there, the way I would understand it.
So those positions would go away, is what you're saying?
Yeah, the plan is to get people in-house that can actually administer that training in the future. It's just at this point, they don't have those people because they have one retiring, and I believe possibly another one as well. So they'd like to be able to bring these people back, as temporary until they can get in-house.
Okay, so these are temporary positions.
Okay,
I misunderstood. I thought they were permanent positions, the way it was worded in the resolution.
I think the thought was it's at least 1 year. Hopefully after that year, they can go away, but I guess we'll have to see how.
But they're gonna be hired as permanent employees or temporary or?
They're put in there as permanent part-time employees.
Permanent, okay, so they're all.
Whether or not they're funded for next year, I guess,
Right,
for
okay.
2023.
Dana Hogan had another question? Yeah. You wanna answer it, Dave, or did you wanna read it, or what? He says, going back to TDI, I was under the impression a portion of the payouts would occur at construction date. Then the remainder when construction was completed. Did I misunderstand this? There are some economic payments being made, but the pilot and the community host benefit packages will not start until the construction is completed.
Take care of that, Dana? Very good. Kathy Fedler.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump onto a completely different other topic, and I apologize, because the first thing somebody's gonna say is this should have come through government ops, but I wasn't available last month to bring this up. And since the new year starts in January, I thought maybe we should discuss it beforehand. A couple of years ago, we created the IT committee because there was so much work being done within IT and we needed it. And it seems to me that going into the next year, that maybe we should roll IT back into government ops. I did some research, I went back through on the minutes, for 12 meetings last year. There was one long meeting with an executive session and everybody, well, the majority of us attended. But once you take that meeting out, the other 11 meetings only lasted a total of 157 minutes for the whole year. There were 6 meetings under 6 minutes long. And I think if we end up where we have to go back to being in person all the time and can't do these meetings by Zoom, that's a lot to ask for people from the northern part and the southern part, even the local people to drive up here for a committee meeting that on average is 17 or 18 minutes long. There was no meetings over 30 minutes except for the one that had an issue where we had an executive session and lasted just about an hour. And since it's the end of the year, I thought maybe we should talk about it now and look at rolling it back. I don't know what the exact steps we have to do to move it back into government ops, but before we get a committee assignment in January, I thought maybe this was a better time to bring it up.
Our IT chair seems to have disappeared from the screen.
So what?
That's one way to roll it back.
Oh, Jimmy's gone?
Yeah, he's
Sorry, Jim.
He didn't like
I
being,
didn't see him go.
he didn't like being penalized for his efficiency. I understand completely.
So we're on the.
Debbie can correct me, but the committees are established by the rules of the board, I believe.
Correct.
And which departments fall under which committees are established by the rules of the board, so simply be amending the rules of the board. You'll see the rules of the board come up again in January at the organization meeting.
So that's a full board, not a...
Yeah, it's a full board and it's a 2/3 full board.
So we can't do that before there's committee assignment?
Sure. You could amend the rules at the December meeting by 2/3 to remove the IT committee and place that department underneath the government ops.
Okay. I mean,
That's the mechanism by which it would be done.
Nobody's speaking in opposition to it, but in the event of us being more efficient, I'm not sure what other people think, but if I'm gonna be here, I just as soon do back-to-back-to-back meetings and not have the big dead time in between, or in the event of efficiency, because it is a drive for anybody for this meeting. So that was my first one. The other one probably won't go over as well, but I also think that maybe we should definitely look at personnel again, because it seems like personnel is just going through and going, yep, we agree backfill, yep, we agree backfill, yep, we agree backfill. There's not, even when we have handbook changes or vacation discussions, things like that, we're still on an average of less than 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes in the personnel committee. I understand that it'll make it a little bit more of a difficult position, as far as hiring or, doing the interviews. But up until a year or so ago, we did the interviews for department heads for the committee within the oversight committee. And I'm not sure that was all bad. I think sometimes that's better, because when they do the interviews in personnel, anybody can join the meeting. But I still think, it's my opinion, but the oversight committee would have more knowledge for when they're interviewing for a department head. But again, that's just my opinion. I understand that we have to do department head reviews and such like that, but maybe there's an event, maybe we just form a committee to do that, or we just choose the person to run those reviews, like maybe vice chair, or pick a different supervisor to run those, because in all reality, all the supervisors should be attending, department head reviews. And I think that's one of the only things that I saw would really, really fall under personnel. I did try and read all of the minutes last night for the last year, so it was fresh in my mind. There were a couple minutes that were longer, but one of them was a cascading effect had been offered to be discussed within the oversight committee, but then it was, no, we all get it, but then when it got to personnel, it was a big conversation, so that one ended up longer. And there was another one, where somebody tried to change and hire mid-year, even though other departments aren't allowed to hire mid-year, and that meeting was longer. But all the rest of them were 30 minutes or less. So I'm just putting it out there, maybe something to think about, rolling that committee back or changing it, because, I don't know, it seems, I don't like to use the term, but it seems rubber stampish, that we're just going through.
Let's do audit too.
Right? What was that, Dana?
Let's roll audit into something too. That'd be better also.
I think you can keep on it. That's too early in the morning for me.
Stay over, right?
If you remember back, I know it was before you were on the board, Kathy.
You didn't just, you started it. Some of the duties within personnel you started when I first started, and some of these new duties, like interviewing a department head in personnel instead of the oversight committee, is a recent change.
Back before we made the change, there's actually another committee that, I can't remember the name, was it staffing committee or whatever?
Staffing pattern, something, I
Staffing,
saw
that-
paperwork. What was it?
that was probably,
Yeah.
staffing review, that was probably even a lot shorter than personnel, but we wrapped more duties into the personnel committee. Responsibilities, and the theory is that we actually now have each oversight committee chair sit on personnel committee, so you get a viewpoint from all committees.
No, not all of them. As Matt likes to say, ag and planning isn't that important. And when you went to go from Zoom meetings to in-person, he's like, well, we don't need ag and planning there. I'm not saying that just because I'm not on it, but it just seems like it's falling into more of all the stuff that would fall under finance with a lot of the people that are already on finance. And I guess when I look at it, if you see a department head who has to do the definitions or the explanations in their committee, and then we're pulling them in to do it again in personnel, when the oversight committee may or may not be able to attend it, and then they might have to come back in again in finance to prove their point again, we're repeatedly pulling our department heads out of other duties. Do the same thing over and over. I guess I was just looking for efficiency.
Wasn't one of the reasons we started putting personnel and HHS and IT on the same day? Consolidate the number of visits? So we did take sort of some movement
We
to
did.
reduce the number of trips over here, because personnel was almost a standalone.
And I think IT became immediate after, right, instead of that time?
Immediate before, immediate after, but you still have the gap until 1 o'clock for a meeting that's 15 to 25 minutes long. Just saying, I was just pointing that out. I get that you created the personnel committee, and I read the stuff in the back, and Melissa found my old paperwork for when personnel was, created. But something to think about.
Thank you.
Oh.
He's the chairman.
I know.
Welcome back, Kathy. Apparently COVID didn't knock her down very much.
No, I didn't want to let her
It's a sweater.
It gave her a rest.
Yeah.
She got rested up.
like 4 days.
I think I might be with her on one and not with her on the other. When we made the switch to have a separate IT committee, that was kind of, I kind of ponchoed that at the time. Because I thought we had a whole bunch going on in IT and a bunch of changes, and we're having a pretty tough time with IT, and I think that, we had a couple of chairmen that worked pretty hard on it. Come an awful long way in IT. When I was chairman of government ops, IT was in that. And I think that at the time we were making IT, the statement was, if things smooth out, get back to, you know, where we think they're running effectively and everything, and it's more of a reporting function and that sort of thing, but we could roll it back into government ops, and I would not object to doing that at all, other than, you know, it's one less committee chair, people feel important about, but,
Poor Jimmy.
you're not gonna run up the screen for Christ's sake. But, I wouldn't, at this point, I think things are going really, you know, really smoothly. We'd have, actually, Roger's cybersecurity report probably has got some government ops information too, so I don't see any reason to object to it if people want to roll that back into government ops. Personnel, I'm a little more, uncertain about. We've had some amazing stuff going on in the personnel committee here over the past few years. Matt and I have, gone through our years with some of the things, and, I'm not sure I'm ready to give up the personnel committee per se yet. The old staff and review committee we had wasn't terrifically effective, and if we talk about rubber stampers, that was, really rubber stampers. I think personnel has done some important things. Some of our job search stuff has been through the personnel committee, and that's been pretty critical stuff. And I give Matt, by the way, a lot of credit for some of that stuff, but I couldn't argue in favor of giving up the personnel committee. Now Dave gets nothing. I couldn't, in good conscience argue to close down the personnel committee at this time, but I wouldn't be at all concerned about rolling IT back into government ops.
3.5.
I agree with Cassie. I never agreed with the idea that the department head interview should be outside of the committee that has oversight over it. So I completely agree with Cassie on that. I agree with her on the IT. I think fewer committees that maybe meet a little longer is preferable to more committees that meet shorter, just due to the travel time. And the only committee that I was ever duped into being the chairman of, if anybody ever remember the Tourism Advisory Board, wasn't even really a committee, it's just an advisory board. One of the first things we did was dissolve the committee. So I'm completely in agreement with Cassie.
Yeah, just in my defense, I spent a lot of time with Melissa and Danielle during the month so that we can have efficient personnel meetings. I can be less effective and we can have longer meetings at that. But if you think going back to all the interviews for administrator, and let's be honest, between you, me, and Danielle, the time we spent here and down at the sewer district getting a new sewer, that was very involved. If you want to get that to somebody else who's already involved doing stuff here, all that stuff done behind the scenes, I think the personnel committee actually is very efficient and effective and gets things done. If you want to piggyback with something else, that's fine, but I think it does its job.
And I was thinking back to when the Personnel Committee took over the interviewing of all the department heads for different committees, or different departments, I should say. And I think one of the reasons why they decided, or you decided to put it under personnel, was just to have some kind of same standards for all of the department heads as far as the interviewing process. Instead of each committee asking that candidate different questions, they were kind of all the same. I think that was part of the reason why you wanted one group to do all of the interviewing, but of course all the board is, able to be at any of those interviews, depending, no matter where it is.
I want to say one thing about it. I don't have a problem with the way the system works. We've evolved all the time. But the one thing I would say about IT, and James has run it very efficient, is that I would hate us to put IT back on the burner. That was one reason we created it, was to put it front and center to us, not just because of things we were going through, but to make everyone realize that this is a big part of our future, because everything now revolves around IT. Think how Zoom is, working today for our meetings. I mean, IT is a big portion. I would hate to diminish what IT is to the county. I guess that would be my concern. And if we are gonna stay with the personnel the way it is, it keeps another person on there too, because I believe IT is a representative on personnel. So they're kind of intertwined, and I'm glad that Cassie brought it up the way she did. But I got Dan Shaw and somebody else.
I don't disagree with anything Cassie said about getting tied up here for short meetings, but, and I don't disagree with what Matt said either about personnel, the importance of it. But I'd like to just touch base with the idea that IT is very important. And I think you have some members on IT, and I'm not one of them, that are very forward-thinking about IT, and IT has a very large budget. Would it not accomplish the same thing as if you always had IT immediately following government ops? Then people wouldn't be making any special trips or dragging their feet around up here waiting till 1 o'clock. But yet you still have that significance that you just mentioned on how important it is. It's identified and it has a more of a focus with the committee members on that aspect, and yet still accomplish what Kathy wants to accomplish, which I totally agree with, to make things simpler.
Well, I think that's back to a scheduling thing, just as to which.
Right, that's what I'm saying, and still keep IT.
And usually we decide some of that, or I know Deb does, is if some of the people are on the same committees, so that you're not bringing somebody in that's just on IT and isn't on government ops, and so it's according to what the committee makeup is, and I guess I would look at that after we see the committee makeups, would be where I'd go there. Dave?
So, let's talk about IT for a second. And personnel falls in the same window. IT got lost in government ops, it got lost in everything else, and we saw what happened when we didn't pay attention to IT. Pulling it out puts a very specific focus on IT. It's not merged into government ops, it's not merged into finance, it's not merged into anything else. We need to pay 100% attention to IT because of everything that's going to happen. That was also true with personnel. Parts of personnel were covered in finance, but finance got so burdened down with things that we never paid enough attention to personnel matters, and shifting it out of finance and shifting the staffing pattern and merging those two committees together was purposely done so we would concentrate on the important personnel issues and not let it get lost. And when we have a 2-hour finance meeting about all this budget and everything else, personnel matters got lost in that. We need to pay attention to two very important committees to the organization running of the county. And if we want to change the times we do these things, if we want to change the scheduling to make it more convenient for people to come up, that's fine. I myself would prefer to be able to come 1, 2, 3 meetings all in a row and get them all done in the morning versus the afternoon. That's my preference. But I think to merge them back together is really a danger of potentially getting back to where we were a few years ago in IT. Now, we have someone very good in IT right now. But will that person be there forever? We need to consider not only the short-term impacts, but the long-term impacts of it. So I, for one, think both committees are very important the way they're structured now and play a very strong purpose in making sure we're attending the issues. If there's things we want to change about maybe department interviews, that's something to consider, but it's not the only reason for personnel.
So, listening to that, it sounds like we should pull every department head out separate, because are we losing the track of Office of Real Property, are we losing track of planning, are we losing track of Al's office? Should every committee have their own? And with me, I would do IT first thing on the agenda. Terry's efficient, she gives you all the information, put it on the first thing of agenda every month for government ops. I mean, all committees and all department heads should be being looked at all the time. And I think to say that IT needs to be separate just because it's important, all of the departments are important. All of the departments have the potential to have huge amount of dollars. Buildings and grounds sits within government ops, and they're using the most money, or if not one of the most highest budgets and we still have them within government ops. It just seems to be efficient. If you wanna put IT first thing, so everybody's still awake when we start government ops, then do it that way. But I mean, building and grounds budget is bigger. It just, I'm sorry if people feel insulted because I wasn't trying to demean anybody's position or anybody's thoughts or anything. I was trying to create efficiencies, and that was how I thought of it. I think IT most definitely could be rolled back in. I mean, I went through, there are a lot of literally short meetings. And yes, everybody does behind the work for every committee to have. Every committee chair should be working with the people within their committee. Those are all things that everybody's doing that chairs a committee. That was just my thought. I think IT definitely could be rolled back in as an efficiency.
Being concise and efficient is a big thing, and it does help, it helps us stay focused on what's going on in the meeting too. But the only one that I thought was off in the discussion was, I believe when we did personnel and finance, I think personnel was first. So what it was sometimes personnel would get way long, and we couldn't concentrate on getting the stuff done that had to be done in finance. I think it was the opposite way around as you told the story, but that seems like that's pretty minor. But that's what happens if the meetings get too long, people lose focus and whatever. So I think being concise and efficient is very good, but it's something to think about, and we'll look at that in the new year after everybody's had time to chew on it, I guess, because it's always good to take a look, that's for sure.
Well, Dave likes to move everything to government ops, and I think we have government ops before the end of the year, because it seems like it should be decided, by the end of the year, so when the committees are formed. Because, there's some of us have had the discussion on and off throughout the year, so when do you bring it up? Yeah, bring it up sometime. So I'm the troublemaker.
If you want,
Not the first time.
if you want Frank to come up,
Data half, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you. Cassie's idea about IT is a no-brainer. I don't understand why there's resistance when meetings last 6-10 minutes long. If I remember right, when IT was underneath government ops, IT started taking up a large portion of the government operations committee meeting, which is why it was decided to create its own committee. Well, you've got to be able to evolve or you go extinct. So let's evolve, bring IT back underneath government ops. Personnel, I can change my mind on that. Matt does an awful lot of background work that we don't see, which is probably why those meetings are short. But Cassie, if you want to make a motion that we amend the rules of the board to bring IT back underneath government ops, I'll second that.
Can you do that through here, or does it have to go as a resolution into the board meeting?
Well, it's gotta be a resolution to the full board, but it's gotta come from somewhere, either an individual sponsor or a committee.
Well, I'll make a motion to move that one out, back into government ops.
I second.
I got Sue Cleary. Sue Henry the first.
Having heard many times in different human services, does this impact how Deb does her call out to the Board of Supervisors as far as minutes go, and it builds, one committee builds on another? By taking IT out, will that impact that?
We can adjust the schedule.
And the other thing is, Terry is so efficient that, Cassie's right. I mean, she brings the data in and we go through it, and, it is clear and concise, and then Roger does the cybersecurity, which is clear and concise, and so it is. They're shorter meetings, but having it be in front of human services meetings, it's like, I like the fact of having the 3 meetings in one day of IT, human services, and personnel, and we can do it that way. Certainly is more effective on my time and everybody else's. I don't know how that rolls out for trying to keep up with minutes, because you've got 3 committees in one day and keeping track of it. obviously they do a great job.
And your committee is kind of living proof as to what Cassie was talking about, because Human Services used to be DSS and Public Health, and we merged them together, so it's kind of the same idea.
Okay, I don't wanna make it sound like I'm talking on both sides of my face here,
Just move the mask a little.
but, you are now, rolling ahead with this. I was kind of under the impression we were gonna talk about this a little bit thing. I think that making, this sort of a motion and a move here out of finance without, either Terry being here or Jim Griffith, he just texted me, he had a hard out at 10:25, he had to go to another meeting. I think that not having him here to weigh in on, I have no idea how much background material he's doing. He might be like Matt, maybe the reason it's running so good is because he's spending hours in here making it run good. I don't know. But I really think he ought to be here to weigh in and talk about it before we make a decision. I got no vote on this committee, but I would be a little reluctant to bring it to a vote out of here right now. Just for that reason.
Well, I've got a motion in a second, so I've got to bring it somewhere.
Somebody make a motion to table.
I would make a motion to move this to government ops, because we can still do the organization meeting.
Yeah, is that a motion to amend?
Yes.
Is there a second on the amendment?
I'll second it.
Second by Secretary. Okay. So, discussion on the amendment.
It wasn't a comment on the amendment, it was on something else. But you wait, right?
Well, yeah, so the amendment either passes or fails, and then we go back to the original discussion. Okay. All in favor of the amendment, moving it to government ops for discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there anybody opposed? And the amendment passes. Back to the discussion.
So technically, we should vote on the whole thing again.
Right.
Now, amendment.
Well, right, but so, we're back to discussion though before we vote, right?
Right. No, because there may be some people who don't want to do anything.
Right.
So now we're discussing, does it go to government ops, or do you just not want it to go anywhere and stay status quo?
But regardless of that, if someone wants to sponsor a motion that it's mailed out tomorrow for next Friday, they can do that to do whatever they want, correct?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So even though whether this gets approved or defeated, somebody could still go to Debbie today and say, Debbie, I want to send out I want to make a motion for next Friday.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, just be what names are on the top, that's all.
Right.
I wasn't trying to be difficult. Obviously, I couldn't attend meetings last month, so I couldn't bring it up there. This is the next biggest group of people that we have. So I brought it up today because I figured nobody was gonna make a decision in the first shot. That gave us time to do government ops before the end of the year. So even though I brought it up and moved it, I knew nobody would go.
In our timetable is basically just saying we'll have a discussion again about, after everybody's had time to think about it at government ops. And January 3rd, usually, after all those, circumstances that we go through to reorganize, if we want to have a further discussion before they set the committees, we still have that opportunity, but it may be put to rest, or maybe some big change comes out of government ops. So I guess that's where we're at. I have no idea.
Right?
Yep. But
Yeah, I just, we have been through a pandemic here that has stressed all of us to the max. And we should be proud of the committee format and function that we have now, and the way the chairs of those committees and all the other supervisors responded to limited information at times, short fuse timeframes we had to respond to things, and the way that they conducted themselves throughout this whole thing. I think to change the whole structure on something that has proven it works doesn't make a lot of sense. However, having said that, I had mentioned with Melissa the other day, I talked about maybe one of the sensible things to do was start the IT meeting, right after, or do IT first and have that meeting start immediately following, without all the time in between. It seems to me it makes more sense that we accomplish as much as we can with those committee members that are here in the time frames that they're going to be here. So we get a broader perspective on what's going on. If we look at our meetings, we have a majority of our supervisors join in on those committee meetings as well. Now, maybe that would decrease if we didn't have Zoom. I don't know, because of the travel that's involved. But I think you're all to be commended for the job that you have done. Specifically when, and I could talk about personnel. If we had someone in personnel that could take over, we were looking for and help out, as Bob and Matt did on those two situations, we'd have been in deep doo-doo, because I was buried knee deep in COVID stuff at that point in time. The timing was not good for Chris to leave. And I don't mean that negatively about him, but it just wasn't from a time perspective and where we were organizationally. And so I think that, and I agree with a lot of what Dana Haff is saying about the necessity to, consolidate these things and make them more effective if we can. But we have a system that works very well. And I think to take and overload one committee with additional things, we're just weakening the overall function of what everyone can do collectively. I think you get burned out after a while. If we have one committee that's going to have all the proponency for more things, the more chance there is for burnout on that committee's part. We can all only do so much. So, no matter what direction this goes, I just want to commend everybody for the amount of time and effort they put into it. And I certainly can appreciate Cassie's situation, who wants to come up for 15 minutes and then have to sit around for 2 or 3 hours in between the next meeting. So maybe it's a scheduling thing we need to take a look at. And that's not a reflection on the girls that do the scheduling. It's just a reflection of the time that we have available in between some of our meetings. So I think the personnel concept, there's a lot of stuff that is done that's put through the test so that when it's presented to everybody on the board, that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. It's not as simple as it looks, the same as it isn't in DPW, and Jay has to present something and work with something. And then the same thing goes in government ops, and it goes right on down through all of our committees. So I would just like to thank everybody for the job that you've done. Let's not rush into this thing. Let's put some thought into it. Let's not act on emotion. And, maybe the simple fix as we start out would be to just do as many meetings consecutively as we can in a shorter period of time. And that's just my feeling on it, but thank you.
Okay, so back at what we have at hand and sitting on the table at the moment is a motion to go to government ops to further this discussion. So is there, all in favor say aye at this point?
Data half at the end now.
Dana, was that a question or were you voting?
Question, but are you going to have another discussion because I think we've discussed this a lot. Why do we have to go to government ops to say the same things we are saying right now?
I think where Bob Hankey was, you didn't have the actual person here from that committee, neither the department head nor the chair of the committee.
Didn't know he was leaving.
Yeah, Kathy didn't realize he was leaving, so I mean, that was just to include the chair of the committee. So if we can further the discussion, and maybe nobody wants to discuss it when we get there, but it's on the floor to be voted on, so I have to go through with that.
So if you vote no on the current.
Right, if you vote no,
And everything stays the same.
you just don't discuss it in government house.
Right. Well, maybe. Well, that gave you some other alternatives, but the point is parliamentarily, if that's even a word, procedurally speaking, if you vote no on this resolution, then the subject is just over and done with until somebody raises it in some other format or form.
So a yes vote is to discuss it in government ops, a no vote is to let it go a different avenue at a different time, or maybe never. Is that as clear as mud? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any notes? So it will be discussed in government ops. Okay. Is there any other business?
We'll call Jimmy and Warren.
Any other business? We're good? We're adjourned?
Wait,
Oh, wait a minute, I got that, Becky.
this is not, well, it's sort of financial business. It is the Christmas season, and we are taking up the annual
Christmas collection. So, the running amount seems to be $20 this year, so it comes to me.
So zoom that money into Bob Hankey.
I'll send the email out.
We'll get you on Venmo.
Just a
Does
heads
he
up
do
now.
Venmo?
Very good. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.